Hi, my name is Himanshu and welcome to What It Takes. Winston Churchill once said, we shape our homes and then our home shapes us, right? And yeah, today is the day when we are going to learn about what it takes to do something in, you know, doing a business in interior designing, right? But before that, let's talk about a couple of industry. This industry, how big is in industry in the world right now, in India right now, right? So let's talk about a couple of facts. This industry, the interior designing industry, is comprised of professionals who are engaged in planning, designing, and decorating the interior spaces, right? And according to Indian furniture market forecast and opportunities in 2019, the country's furniture market is projected to grow at CAGR, that is nothing else, compound annual growth rate of 26%. Huge. The market touched $20 billion by 2015 already and is expected to grow more in coming years. Right? So, you know what? There is a huge employment already, a sector which includes a lot of people who are looking forward to do great in this industry. Not only that, this industry is expected to grow at CAGR of around 8% from $837 million in 2017 to 1,138 US dollar millions in 2021, just next year, right? India is expected to rank third in terms of volume of construction by 2030 with the target of 11 billion buildings to be constructed in the world. Guys, this industry itself has a huge scope, unlimited scope, I would say. And I'm really delighted to invite somebody who has been in this industry for 8 years, and I cannot find anybody better than him to help us understand what it takes to be a great business owner in this industry, right? So he's a co-founder of the Insight Story and is none other than Umang Daga. Hi, Umang. Good morning.
Sure, thank you for inviting me for this. Really excited.
Fantastic. Thanks for having you in my channel. And you have around 8 years so far in this industry, and you have been in and out about this industry. But we would like to understand your background first. Where you basically from, and how did you come up with doing something of your own?
So basically, I was doing my BCom honors and I was pursuing CA. And I started with my first job with Ernst & Young. I did my articleship there for 3.5 years. And then I decided to quit CA. I took a break for about 6-8 months. I was looking after the construction of my house. And my cousin sister, who is my co-founder also, who is the co-founder of the Insight Story, she was doing her graduation in NIFT Hyderabad. And final year, I think she got a project and we decided to collaborate together and work on that project. She being handling the designing part, and I was looking after the execution part of it when we started off. So that's how we started. We took a jump, and it's been 8 years now.
Superb, nice. So let me ask this question. I think you have some experience in work as well. You were working before getting into the business.
So I was working with Ernst & Young, and at Ernst & Young, they would make your ass work out, itna zyada, but there's a lot of fun, there's a lot of learning to be done, and the contacts you made at Ernst & Young is actually an asset right now, because all your peers that time have gone on to become the directors or the senior managers in EY or any other big firm. And they started out with you during that time. They would be a year younger to me or maybe 1 or 2 years older to me when I started with EY. So that has become an asset right now. And that's what I've learned in business, that your networking is the biggest asset apart from your skill level and the dedication you show towards your work.
Oh, excellent. In fact, what I understood was you had a job, basically you were working in job, but how come suddenly you jumped into business? This transition is
actually,
you can see.
Yeah, so my family has been into business, and in the end, I wanted to get into business. I wasn't sure which line to take to get into. and this just happened out of the blue. I would have still gotten into a business, but interior designing just happened out of the blue. That's it. And also with starting off with interior designing, it's a lot of job satisfaction when you see the end project, coming out and delivering the project to the customer. Also, I wanted to be my own boss, and this thing gave me the freedom to practice my skills on marketing, on sales, on accounts. So there are too many things, because when you're a startup, you have to do everything, like right from the basic thing to the end goal, to meet the customer, close the client and all, close the orders. So when you start out, you have to do everything, and that was the challenging and the fun part about this. With ENY, I had a good cushioning, monthly salary was coming, and you could work there easily and all. But with business, when I jumped in, it was a big thing, big change. I realized, there's no monthly fixed salary coming in. The amount of running you do will be the amount of earnings you make in the year. So yeah, it was pretty challenging to start off with.
Wow. So, if a person who wants to see, there are a lot of people who actually love interior designing a lot, right? And they have been trying to transition from where they are right now into doing something of their own.
Yes.
So what do you think, for you, how was the experience of transition, and how much did it take time for you to fully functional with your company?
So initially we had to take baby steps. I mean, since this was completely new for both of us, but the good thing was Rashi, since she was she was doing a course in interior designing in NIFT with accessory designing, and then she went on to do a master's in interior designing from University of Arts, London. So it's good to have a partner who knows the technical aspect of it, the technical aspect of designing. And I was looking after the execution. So it was on the job learning process. The initial year was pretty tough, even though we started off with a big project. It was a good learning curve, and we ended up doing a lot of commercial projects in the first 2 years. And that time was the time when I had to put in all those extra hours, maybe 18 hours, 20 hours in a day during site executions and all. And it was the first time we were handling laborers and other contractors and stuff. So you were learning on the job, and the clients who we worked with, they were already experienced in interior designing, in the sense that they have made quite a few stores and houses. So learning from them was the biggest gain we had on how they were handling laborers, the money, the contractors and all. That was the biggest learning thing that we got.
Excellent. So why don't you share, what your company does and what is your company's long-term vision?
So our company is into interior designing and furniture designing, and our long-term vision is to go global and be the biggest Indian brand out there. That's the final vision, and we are working towards it. So it's been 8 years in Hyderabad. We started this off in Hyderabad. We have expanded to Odisha and Bhubaneswar. We have done projects in Australia, and we have also done projects in Dubai. So during this Corona time is when we are looking to completely expand, reaching out to all our contacts and references outside India. But it's been a very good journey and a very exciting journey. It has its own ups and downs, when you start. A lot of learnings to be done, and you'll make mistakes for sure. You can't avoid them. You just can't avoid them. The only thing you can try is to make the mistake. The mistake should be genuine, where you have tried your best, but maybe because of lack of understanding during that point in time, or maybe you just end up with the wrong guys or wrong contractors. And if those are the mistakes, then you learn from them, if you're not intentionally making them. And that is the thing which will help you grow, because then you will hold on to that mistake and try and not repeat that mistake in your next project. So we do a lot of residential and commercial projects. Recently we did a project for Tata Steel in Hyderabad, one of the biggest distributors for Tata Steel. Our last project was for a pharma company, which is a listed company. And it's going on well right now.
Super. In fact, what I understood that even if again times are like this, a new thought process comes into picture that why not global if there is a scope.
Absolutely. Yes. I think it's time the country and as small business owners we take that steps
Right.
to become global, because the amount of effort you put in just to set up market nationally, I think would be the same. It's just that there will be few things which will be different and which I think you can learn on the job. But it's very aggressive now.
So Umang, we would like to know that if somebody wants to start in this industry, right, in doing something of their own, what could be their minimum qualification that they should be at least ready with? Because in your case, you were not, an interior designer officially, but your
Right.
cousin was, let's say, right? So, what do you recommend?
I would suggest anyone starting out, you do your basic graduation in creative designing, either interiors or accessories, and I would suggest them to finish off their masters also, because you'll get to learn a lot, you'll get different exposures, and from a good university, if you do, then the kind of the peer group also that you will have an impact on you. Sorry, I can't hear you.
No, I mean, this is enough. This is good actually. In fact, everyone who is thinking at least should not think of directly getting into it apart. I mean, if you're not done with the education.
Yeah, because the thing is, if you have that basic qualification, the thing is more. I mean, it's not about qualification, but the thing is, you'll get some idea about interior design,
Okay.
and you start working. You don't have to take those first 2-3 steps. You can directly start off with maybe the 5th step, because you will have an idea about the technical aspects, the technical drawings,
Right.
the basic stuff.
Right.
Easier. And plus, it opens up your imagination with these masters from good universities. It opens up your imagination to things which is like very creative.
Interesting. That gives us actually a clear picture about not everyone can actually get into it to become successful.
It takes time. The thing is, it's a very tough field also, because if the projects go well, then it's good. But if your project does not go well, then the reviews are multiplied by 1,000.
Oh my
And
God.
if your project goes well, review is multiplied only by 10. You see, if for anything going wrong, people like to talk about it.
Right.
For anything going right, it's usually very few people who would talk about it. So that's another thing. That's it. Young designers.
Please go ahead.
Sorry,
Please go ahead.
I think there's some issue.
We are able to hear you.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I feel young designers who are doing the masters in designing, they should maybe do a minor course in business management.
Okay.
That would just get them ready or give them a base of starting on their own.
Oh, wow.
And if you can learn with any of the top designers or the top architects, if you can intern or work under them for a year, then that will be the perfect base setting for you to start something on your own later on.
That's an incredible point, in fact, I would say, because mentorship in that area is required as much as that you can reduce the possibility of mistakes. Why not?
Because the thing is, there's so many elements involved in interior designing, so many technical aspects. There's just so many products. You won't know each of them. So it's better you work under someone, get a major idea of the major things used in construction and interior designing, so that your base is set, the foundation is strong.
Super.
And then you can take off from there.
Awesome. Nice. So what do you think would be, some of the legal aspects of setting up the company it takes?
Legal aspects in India, though, I'm not sure. I mean, you can have your incorporation done as a partnership firm or a proprietorship, or if you actually want to start a proper company, then the private limited part of it. But more than anything else, I think it's the contracts that you make with your
Uh-huh.
clients, with your contractors.
Okay.
But I still feel we are a long way off things how it's done outside India, like in Europe or US or UK. You know, those contracts hold up very. They're given a lot of importance, basically.
All right. All
I
right.
mean, that is still in the initial stages. I still feel, unless it's a big, you're doing a big commercial project or something with for a big company, big multinational, then yes, your contract should be in place. Apart from that, for your residential projects or small commercial projects, it's just your rapport and the relation you have with your client and contractors.
Okay.
You
So
have
yours
to
is
balance
a
it out.
private company as such, or a proprietorship or partnership? What is it? Sorry.
It's a partnership firm.
That's great. Nice. So this is somewhere people hesitate sometimes when they are looking forward to start their business, right? So money part comes into picture first again, right? The financial aspect of it, and most of the people actually
True.
they have to have something with them to actually give a good start, right? So what do you think could be the top 5 expenses that happens to start a business in interior design that they should be ready with? Probably you can help us with that.
See, with interior designing, to start off with interior designing business, you don't require a lot of investment. The thing is, it's your investment is here. If you're creative, you know basic sketching rules, you can propose a concept to the client, and they'll pay you an advance for it. That advance money can be used to start off. Even if you don't have money, even for AutoCAD, if you know hand sketches and you can sketch well and you know the technical aspects of dimensions, etc., of products, you can start off. You don't need anything. You don't even need a laptop right now. That's the basic thing. The basic thing is just hand sketching and your idea of dimensions and etc., and how you present it. If your creativity and skill levels are strong, you can just utilize those advanced payments and all that you get to buy softwares, to buy laptops, etc., to start off with. And with creative fields, the best part is you actually don't require a proper office space or something, initially. You can work out of a coffee shop, you can work from anywhere. Because the clients, the contractors are only bothered about the designs and the working drawings that you make. You can make them from anywhere. Once you start on the process, you're getting that flow of cash is when you can start to add in your other expenses, so that you have an office space, you get a laptop, you get the best softwares, because these softwares are like 50-60K a year, and these are all like on a lease basis.
Right.
Yeah. So for a designer starting out with no capital, you don't require those things. The hand sketches will take a lot more time than doing it in AutoCAD and all, but you can still make it. It's just that you'll have to put in a lot more hours initially, which I think is fine in case you don't have the capital to start.
Right.
Otherwise, 50K is good enough to start off.
Oh, that's pretty feasible.
But you have to count your,
right, please go ahead.
yeah, but you have to count your investment. So what I was saying was you have to count your investment right from the day you entered your graduation first class for interior designing. So that money spent for your graduation and masters is your investment.
Exactly, right? So in fact, that makes sense. But what I understood from you, this is more of a time-intensive one in the initial, and everybody can do this if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, so that's what you need to have skill level and good creativity to start off with.
Super.
If you don't have that skill level, then you have to work on it.
Right.
Because you see, anything you make on a project is directly related to the cost. Okay. And sometimes clients might not appreciate it even if you're just starting out.
Okay. That's great. So how was So how was your first year, or let's say first 2 years, with respect to finance? any challenges that you faced the first 2 years? I understood that mostly your time is the major effect, but in terms of money, it's a couple of challenges that you faced in the first 2 years.
Right. So we were lucky that with our very first project, it was a good duplex residential flat that we got, and the client also paid us advance fees and all for our concepts that we presented to them. And those concepts were all hand sketched. I still have those papers with me. Like each and every bedroom was hand sketched to be presented to the client, and that is how the project was finalized. And as soon as they gave us the advance amount, we just utilized that amount to open a bank account, deposit some cash there, get all the finance things sorted. So that helped us. But yeah, in the initial first, I think 3 years, we made money and we lost money also. The thing is, our concept was straight that we'll work ethically. Even if we make a mistake, we will keep ourselves accountable and responsible for it, instead of passing on the buck to the contractor or the labor or the vendor or the client. So when we were working with that mindset, if we made a mistake, we made sure that the client didn't pay to rectify that mistake. If it was made because of our lack of knowledge or our lack of expertise, then we made up for it by reimbursing that to the client in the work department. And that's how we worked. So it was difficult the first 2-3 years. We were getting projects, but since it was our learning curve and there were mistakes happening, we learned from those mistakes. But we ended up doing a good number of projects there, and most of the projects came out really well. And interior designing is word of mouth reference mostly. I mean, back in 2012-13, you didn't have too much of digital marketing and all happening. Not like what's happening right now. So it was all word of mouth. So the clients saw that in us and they kept referring us projects after projects, and that's how we grew. So it's okay to make mistakes. You just have to own up to it. And if you own up to it, the clients are happy. If it's from your end.
Okay. Excellent. In fact, what I realized that at least first 3 years is something that whatever you make, you actually input the same thing in your business, right? So that at least you make the foundation correct, because you're looking, long term, not just 3 or 4 years.
Exactly.
Super. Nice. So in fact, you already gave a glimpse of how networking helped you. But why don't you elaborate a little bit of how networking helped you in the beginning and how is it helping you now?
So in the beginning, I think 2013-14, we joined BNI, Business Networking International, which is a huge thing here in Hyderabad. There are multiple chapters here. And joining those business groups gave us access to people instantly. There were a lot of vendors in that group. And so right now, most of my business, I can just do it through WhatsApp, where I can place the orders. Now, because I joined that group, I could relate to so many other vendors and all, get connected to them. So that helped us. And apart from that, since we have been in Hyderabad for a long time and we did our schooling here, so you as it is, know a lot of people here, and that also helped us a lot. Connecting to them, and they're referring projects to us, all that really helped.
Nice. So basically, in fact, what I understood that not only networking helps us to connect different people, but also to get projects from. And what do you suggest, to start with? If somebody I'm starting, in this industry, who are the key people that I must be surely meeting them on a regular basis? What kind of people are they? Are they project owners or stakeholders, or mostly your close ones, something like that?
See, initially, maybe through your networks and all, you might get 1 or 2 projects. But for them to refer you, you have to design and execute the project really well. You just have to go at it 200%. You have to consider each project as your last project and go 200% at it. You have to make sure that you get into those minute details which the contractors might not get into. And that is when the finishing and the quality comes out. And when that happens, right, it becomes easier because then the person who gave you the project refers you sooner to other guys. That's when networking helps. But if you're not focused on your project and you get a negative review, then networking will only take you so far. And because most of them, they will ask you, what projects have you done? They would like to see your portfolio. They would like to see reviews. And if in a place like Hyderabad, the social community is actually pretty small compared to a Bombay or a Delhi. So to get reference out of your work is not that difficult. So initially networking will help. Then you have to really work on your projects. And then again, networking helps because that's when if you have really good projects that you have completed, you have good reviews, then the word spreads faster among those networking groups. So that makes a lot of difference.
In fact, building relationship is what it matters, I guess.
Absolutely. You have to, I mean, in any business, I think you have to have relation with your customers, with your vendors. And here there are so many stakeholders. You have your designers, in-house designers, you have your vendors, your contractors, your neighbors, right down to those the lowest guys who work on the field, And you have your clients. You have to maintain relationship with all of them, good relations, and all have to go together.
Fantastic. And this is an area where it has a huge scope, right? I mean, the creativity that's what creativity has no limit. The imagination is no limit. So how do you update yourself? Like, everybody has, if you're running a company, you might as well come to at par what is right now, what is the current trend. So how do you do that?
Right.
And what do you suggest?
So Rashi takes care of the trend part, and what we do is we go through a lot of magazines, and sometimes we project that this might be a new trend coming up because of the past historical thing that we have. These many trends have gone by, and maybe this is a new trend coming in. And you need to attend a lot of exhibitions, especially those big ones, to get an exposure to what are the new products coming in the market.
Right. Can you name a few which is like common for anybody can attend?
The most common ones would be ACE-Tech. It's a huge exhibition which happens in Delhi, Bombay, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and the size of the exhibition is actually huge in Delhi and Bombay. Then you have a few niche exhibitions being done by Architectural Digest also, where the top of the line designers and architects attend those exhibitions, and really good vendors, niche vendors showcase their products in those exhibitions. So ACE-Tech would be like a general exhibition ranging from basic to luxury, and something like Architectural Digest would be luxury segment. So you have to attend all these, you have to keep following these pages like Architectural Digest, some international magazines, international designers, your top Indian designers and architects, to know what they're doing different, what material they're playing with. That's when you know a trend that okay, this is the material which is common with everyone now, and this is the trend which is going on right now. But if you want to be a step ahead, then you have to come out with your own thing that this might be the next big thing, and start working on it.
In fact, with that kind of trend, you add your own creativity and thought process to it. It becomes a great mixture altogether.
It changes the whole thing, the whole landscape of design.
Fantastic, super. I mean, I just myself cannot imagine this. This itself is the area where your mind always is in creative zone. It is in developing zone. And you're thinking new things always, right?
There are too many things you want to get done.
Right, absolutely. You're all the places. I think you're actually thinking from small things to big things. Yeah. Probably you can help us with understanding
design,
what is the. Yeah, sorry. Let me frame that question properly. So, this gives me a great picture. So, what is the smallest thing that you look at, and what is the biggest thing that you look at this point of time?
The smallest thing would be right down to your accessories, that what kind of uh, linen cover are you using for your bed, what kind of,
Okay.
so we design right from that stage that, we select even the bed cushions, covers for the clients so that everything is matched to the interiors. And then they'll have to maintain it, but you have to get down to that detailing. Like how each corner would be utility wise, how do we utilize the space, especially for small flats, because storage is a big issue with them, and how innovatively do you use it, and all. It's very detailing, very much detailing.
Nice. And on top of it, you have to think about the person, what they like.
100%, you have to work around that. You have to do something out of the blue. Some clients, they do give us that freedom to go all out in designing and be as creative as possible, and not to worry about what they kind of want. They'll just give you a general idea that these are the things we want, and they'll give you full freedom. And sometimes the clients are very specific on what they want, and then if we feel it's outdated or something, then we try and make them understand, sit with them, and explain it to them that maybe these are the better options that they can look at, and they do understand that, and then it's fun to work on those projects.
Super. That's where your experts come into picture.
Absolutely. It's our job to let the client know that what is the new thing, because see, when you're spending money, you would want something new and not something which is repetitive, which is already being done. So that's as designers, it's our responsibility also to educate the client on the new trends and all happening, so that they get the best output for their value.
Super. Nice. So this is the area where, as we started off the conversation, that if somebody is there to guide you in this area, and probably if you can work under someone, right? So to get the best,
Yes.
case for you. So that there comes mentorship, right? So how would you, justify that mentorship part for yourself, as well as how much it has helped you so far, and what do you recommend for new people who wants to come to do something of their own, and what is the mentorship, what importance of mentorship?
I think mentorship would be really, really important, because the amount of elements you deal with in interior designing, it's always good to have a mentor who can guide you. Like I have 2-3 mentors. There's an architect, there is an interior designer, there might be a vendor. I just reach out to them if I'm stuck somewhere. I reach out to them, this is the situation, what do I do? How do I solve this problem in execution or in designing? And I think it's very, very important. You get connected to a good, experienced designer or an architect. And as I said before, if you work with them, maybe for a year or 2 years, you get to learn a lot. And again, it's all about relation. You have good relation with them, in the future they'll help you out. So no one says no as it, aisa kuch nahi hai ki, they'll just say no, we won't help you out or something. And if you have good relations, they will advise you on things that can be done, or the mistakes which they should not make, which would be a good learning curve.
Nice. So you know what, mentorship is definitely something which gives you a good edge, good start probably, right?
100%.
Right. So, as the interior designer, obviously you have a lot of magazines and you keep yourself updated in that terms, right? But as a business owner, there is a different aspect to it where you need to work on yourself, right?
Yes.
So how do you do that for yourself, and what kind of books that you read for yourself in that area to improve yourself or get better in yourself, or how do you improve yourself in that basically?
So, since I look after the operations and the execution part and the business part, so I read books on project management. I look up courses on project management just to keep myself updated. There might be a more efficient way of doing execution. Business-wise, I read books on business ethics. And apart from that, since we come from a business family, I think the the best person would be your family members who have all the experience in business. They might have dealt with all the situations by now, and you put it across them. I also did SP Jain's family-owned business OMP management program, owners management program, and that also helped me become more aggressive because the kind of concepts they tell you for family-owned business, it really opens up your mind that even this is possible and etc. So you do all these small courses and all in between to keep yourself updated. And the current book that I'm reading is Oration on Business Ethics by J.R.D. Tata. It's this one. So
thanks for showing that book. In fact, I've heard about it a lot, but I've not read how. I mean, amazing.
Tata Company is something which I look up to. The kind of ethics and how to look after their stakeholders is very inspiring.
Right.
So ethics-wise and all, we try and incorporate as much as possible, and business-wise also learn from them. So I follow Anand Mahindra and Ratan Tata and all.
So when please go.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So certain insights that they give and all, which really helps you look in a different way in your business, on how to get things done.
Correct. Yeah. Great. In fact, that's bring me attention to the things that you have actually repeated a couple of times, ethics and to follow some principles on that line.
Yes.
I would like to know, that if somebody like me who wants to start, what kind of moral value should I have to start with?
See, you've got to be hardworking, dedicated, and you should have integrity. I think very important, and honesty. I've seen that from my experience, clients, they actually value honesty. And the more transparent you are, the better. It will help you run the business smoother. And that is what has helped us. That has been our business model, to be as transparent as possible with the clients, with the cost structure, with the fees, etc. And they have appreciated that. And it's because of that we are getting so many references, and the kind of positive impact it's happening on our business because of that. And ethics is very important in this field, I feel, because there's a lot of options to go wayward also in this field. But as I say, instead of looking at the short-term gains, if you look at the long-term gains,
right,
then you grow into a big company, or at least you work towards growing into a big company. And these principles or these values will actually hold you in good stead in the long run.
Sure. Nice. There's no shortcut.
No, there's no shortcut. Absolutely, there's no shortcut.
Interesting. Nice. So in fact, the moral values that you started with, that gave you a great foundation, and that's where, because most of the companies die down in first 3 years if they don't follow this integrity, moral values. Actually, you have been there for 8 years in that zone where the competition is huge.
Absolutely. And see, clients and all, they can see through you. You might think that you can play around with them, but you can't. They will see through you at some point. So it's always better if you have these basic understanding and all, and you hold on to it. Then in the long run, it will be very beneficial.
Fantastic. Nice. So, I would love to know about your 24 hours, how it was initially when you were setting up the business, and how is it now?
So when we started off, it was just me and Rashi, and in our first year, and even if a lorry of sand would come, I would get up in the morning by 3:30 to go and check whether because these sand lorries, they basically they try and steal sand, in that weighing bridge and all. So you have to catch that weight. So I used to go on a bike about 10 kilometers from my house, and at 3:34 in the morning, ensure that the empty lorries being weighed, then the one with the sand is being weighed, so that I know this guy is charging me exactly for what quantity I had ordered. And so those are the like basic things that you get into that detailing, that extra effort to know, because that will help you later on, because then you will know in and out of the business. You'll know where people can, scam you. And when you know that, you'll be in a better position to handle things. So that's the kind of detailing that I would get into, like get up 3:34, go see this, then go to the site, stay there at site the whole day, because that was the only project that we were doing when we started out in 2011. That was our first project. So we'd be at site the whole day and ensure that everything is happening, etc. And then go out in the market to find out who are the vendors, because that time we didn't join BNI, etc., no other business groups. So to get a market understanding, we would go around different areas, different vendors to see what are the rates, what are the materials available, and so many things to be done. Come back, make the costing sheet, make the expenditure sheet, where you have keep the bills, etc., to be showcased to the client. So all those basic works had to be done in the first year for us. And then as soon as we started getting the inflow of cash, then we hired a supervisor. So then he started taking care of all this. So I would know where to question him, because since I had already done this, team. Dedicated to their region, and I look after the business operations now. So slowly from micromanagement, I'm gradually shifting to macro.
That gives you a kind of
transition.
transition.
Yeah, because as a business owner, you can't be micromanaging too much if you want to see the business grow. Initially, to start off with, you have to micromanage so that you learn everything about that business.
Right.
Like if you see your father or grandfather, they would make your father sit in the factory or anything, right from school or college, so that they learn everything. Right from the school. And then is when the transition happens. So then your foundation is built.
Right.
Now you know exactly what questions to ask, what areas to look at, and you can catch whether this work has happened or not.
Exactly. And in fact, that's where you find some right people also.
Yeah. So that's by trial and error method. Either you get good references, or you hire people, you do your due diligence, you talk to them, you find out about them, and it's just trial and error then. You might, after your due diligence, you might still end up with the wrong person in your team. And you'll soon know that. Once you know that, you have to let them out.
Right. Makes sense. In fact, there is a time that you need to start delegating things, because you need to expand all over country, and you need some hands to be there.
Yes.
Super. So, I mean, in your 24 hours, you look very healthy, and you look very fit, and your positioning is correct, your image is correct. So how do you maintain that, and what is the importance of health for you?
I think the most important aspect is health. If you can keep yourself physically and mentally fit, you will be able to take the pressure of this job, because in the end, there's a lot of pressure that is there. Right, with any job, even when I was in EY, I was in the audit department. When the finalization time came, you had to stretch those hours. You had to work for 26, 28, 30 hours at a stretch. And it's the same thing with sites. Once you are at the finalization stage, where those small finishing matters, you have to be at site to ensure that it happens. And that is taxing on the body, because you have to continuously stand. You can't sit around on a chair and order. You have to continuously stand, walk around, see what's happening, etc. So for me, fitness has been one of the most critical parts of my life, where right from my schooling days, that is from 2004, I started working out, and till date I work out. So I'm up in the morning by 5:36, and by 6:37 I'm ready for my workout. Depends on right now it's lockdown time, so we are working out by 7 o'clock. Otherwise, in normal duration, normal course, we would be in the gym by 6:15 in the morning. So everyday workout and everyday proper diet plans. By diet plans, I mean, since once you get into fitness, you automatically cut down on the junk part. Just automatically. And then once you get into it, once you start enjoying it, you get hooked onto it. And that's been the case for me. Like as soon as the lockdown opened, I just bought some dumbbells and plates, etc. Because I don't think it will be open this year at least. I really don't. And so now it's a home gym now. But you innovate and you start working out.
In fact, what you said initially when I was asking about the financial investment part of it, now I understand that as a business owner, the health is, if you see health is a part of investment in a day, I think that is the best way that anybody can look up to, because it's something that is non-negotiable.
See, when you talk about fitness, it's your two hands and your legs. There's no one else that. Once you get disciplined there, it actually affects your thought process and your way of working also. Because once you're mentally disciplined there, it just helps you focus on your next job very well. The strength is there then, mentally also. It helps you mentally focus.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thanks for putting that across so well, Umang. In fact, this is something that usually people, I'm not sure how much they follow, but how is the spiritual side for you? Like, do you believe in those facts or things like that? How's your part?
For me, spirituality is not like going to a temple or, just put a padna and all.
Correct.
But you spend that some part of the day. Like for me, I pray every day. But then during work also, or maybe sometime in the night, you spend some part of the day just by yourself and just think on how the day has gone by, some incidents that you might feel happened and you think you can do different. You start thinking on those lines, and then that helps you. Those 5-10 minutes that you get, if you just be by yourself and think on how the day has gone by and some incident that has happened and what different you could have done to handle it better. You will be ready for the next time it happens. You will have another way to look at it.
Super. Nice. Interesting. In fact, when you were sharing about your life, which this includes a lot of time investment that I in fact understood very well. And when there is the time investment, your family is always there with you, and how would you put it across that the family support or the home environment? How important is that for for an interior designer, the person who is doing the business, because you are focused on something else, and obviously you take little time off from your family as well. So, how was your family support, and how do you think that family support should matter?
For me, my family has stood by me as like a rock, and I mean, I think it's very, very important, because if you're sorted in your family and you have the right support, then it becomes easier to handle the business pressure, because for sure there'll be ups and downs, and most of the time that you go through the downtime, you have to be mentally strong, and you would want support from your family so that you stay mentally strong and to work your things out, and you can take inspiration from like anyone in your family. Like for me, my granddad, he's 89, and he still ensures that he's up by 6:30 in the morning. He does his 40 rounds of walking and some exercises, and it's not like in that age what happens is you usually can't do anything by yourself. You need help. You need a full-time, if you can afford a full-time help for your grandparents, it's required. But touch wood, the kind of strength he has shown, that is amazing, because in that age you slip, you fall, and you break your hands and legs. But with that, after happening that also, that zest for life, of living life to the fullest, you can just take inspiration from that. So like my grandfather once, I think last year, he was hospitalized for pneumonia. And as soon as he got out of the hospital, the first thing we did was party out. And he partied till 3 o'clock in the morning with the whole family. We actually went out clubbing. After clubbing, we went to an after party place. Then I was like, let's go home.
That is amazing.
You can take inspiration from anywhere.
Right.
Like, there's no shortage for taking inspiration.
Right.
When they are showing that strength at that stage in their life,
right,
you're pretty young. Then there's no reason why we lose, or put your head down and say you can't do it. Not possible. Just find it through.
Nice, fantastic, super. And in fact, I always say that if you're close to family, it actually gives you that boost. That there is somebody there to hold you up. No worry about it.
100%, no doubt.
Great, nice. So fantastic, Umang. I would definitely like to ask last couple of questions. First is, what are top three challenges that you guys faced in the last 8 years, and something that how did you overcome those, or probably a brief about those? What do you think that those challenges somebody who's new should be ready with?
First three challenges, the major challenges would be project management. That's why it's important to either read on project management or you actually have practical experience working. Because there are so many things to be coordinated between the client, the vendor, the workers, and with your designs. So it gets really tough initially when you don't have a hang of it, when you're just starting out new. There are too many things to be checked. Second would be, I would say, monetary wise, be really wise and be really smart about it. And third challenge would be to take out time to develop your skills, because initially what will happen is you'll spend a lot of, because you'll be getting projects, you'll be excited, so you'll be spending a lot of time trying to make it work really well for you. And when that happens, over a period of time, if you get into that zone of just doing the same thing because it's been successful, or that, okay, fine, it's been working on, it stops you from looking out at something new. So it's better you keep challenging yourself, even by taking maybe a really small project which might have a challenge regarding costing, but that will force you to think in a creative manner on what material and how to be used to get the desired look at the most minimum budget that can be there.
Nice. Great input.
So should be.
Right. So, at last, I would like to ask, what message would you like to convey to people who would like to get into this full time, interior design?
See, there's something written behind me, and that says, creativity takes courage. And that is true. So just have that courage to take that jump and stick to your gut feeling, stick to your core principles. And once you do that, everything else will fall in place. It will take time. There's no shortcuts. So it will fall in place. Just be smart about it. Read as much as you can on the subject, and that will help you.
Amazing, Umang, amazing. Thank you so much, first of all, to spend at least 1 hour with this pen, and then time just flew away.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great. It was a great conversation.
Absolutely, Umang. And we really hope and wish that whoever watches this video gets that kind of foundation built for themselves so that they can start taking a step forward, right?
Yeah. Just believe and take that step forward. Don't worry. Things will fall in place.
Absolutely. Thank you so much and have a wonderful time and wish you all the best. Hope your company grows bigger and bigger globally in all the countries across the world. And glad to have you again.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you.
See you.